Our speaker is Simon Silverleaf. His title of his presentation is My Journey from Hooker to Scrum Master. Can't wait. Simple secrets to staying healthy during your job search and beyond. Simon is continuing to work on staying healthy. This can be a challenge during times of stress, such as during one's job search. Does your lifestyle allow you time to eat right, exercise, get enough rest? All of these are valuable components to be healthy. After a full-time career and then taking care of his mother, Simon found that it was increasingly difficult to remain healthy. Through a series of trial and error changes, he has found ways to improve his health. During this presentation, he will share some suggestions that you may find helpful. Simon Silverleaf.
Good morning, everybody. Now that Kathy has bored you for the last hour, you're all falling asleep, aren't you? And what do we spend our time doing? Where's the lady who says tax examiner? I did that for 4 months this year. And you know one of the requirements for a tax examiner at the IRS is you have to be able to sit for 8 hours a day. So how many of you think, as a kid living in London, I used to go to Piccadilly and do things that you shouldn't talk about? And to anybody who comes from London, you know what Piccadilly is all about. It's in the heart of Soho, which is London's red light district. But no, that isn't the reason I was a hooker. I went to one of those very privileged English public schools. Now, in England, a public school is not like a public school in the United States. A public school is called a public school for a very simple reason. It is open to the sons of gentlemen, and it's public. It's actually private and relatively exclusive, but one of those schools is actually called the Rugby School. It's in the town in northern England called Rugby, and it's where the sport of rugby started. Now, there are various stories about how rugby started. They were playing what was the equivalent of soccer a couple of hundred years ago, and some guy picked up the ball and ran with it. People don't necessarily believe that's true. But there are some similarities because American football is derived from rugby in those games. But when rugby starts, when a play starts in rugby, you form a scrum. Now, a scrum consists of 8 people. And the 2 scrums come together and they lock. And then somebody throws in the ball. And the objective is your team, the big guys are pushing, and the little guy in the middle, me, hanging between these huge guys, is supposed to hook the ball. And that position in the middle of the scrum is called a hooker. So that's how my life as a hooker started. But it also brought to my attention a few weeks ago when I was in the gym in my complex. A lady came up to me and said, "You seem to exercise a lot." I don't think I exercise a lot, but I do spend quite a lot of time in the gym. And she said, "How long have you been doing it for?" I said, "Well, kind of all my life." And on and off, I have done things to make sure I stay fit. At one point, I worked for a big corporation called Reuters in London, and I lived not too far from them, but I would take the underground, the subway, to the YMCA in central London before I go to work, and I'd swim for half an hour. So I managed to incorporate in my life exercise. But I discovered last year, when I came here, my mother was still alive. And I had been going through a period when I had been taking care of her and been responsible for her. After I did that presentation, my life went a little bit crazy because I started getting phone calls because she was in London oh, she's not going to last the night, you need to come. And it just went on for about 4 months. The worst part was when the doctor called me, because they called in a local doctor to look at her one night and said, we want to take her to the hospital to give her intravenous antibiotics because she's got an infection. Now, it was already written down that if she got sick, she wasn't to be taken to the hospital. So you can imagine how I felt on a hospital 5,000 miles away with a doctor talking about, why can't you just do the things that have been written down? I mean, if you could imagine a more stressful situation. Now, I recognize that most of you, because you're looking for a job, that is a stressful situation. So the last thing you're probably going to be thinking about is how to stay healthy whilst you are looking for a job. Before I really get going, I want to give you a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a personal trainer. I have no training in anything I'm going to talk about. So if you do anything I say, that's up to you. Nothing to do with me. I probably have the lowest cholesterol of most of the people in this room. And in fact, one thing that has changed since last year is my cholesterol actually decreased another 25% between last year. My total cholesterol at this point in time is 111, which, if you know what cholesterol is, that's pretty good. It may be too low, but who knows? It was 150 last year, but now it's... But at one point, about 15 years ago, it was 257, which was totally different, and I changed it all with diet and exercise. Now, when it comes to being healthy, you can go to the doctor. The doctor can tell you all sorts of things. But I have a very simple way of determining whether or not I'm healthy. And it's very simple. It's just, how do I feel? There are lots of people who say that you can't do anything about it unless you manage it. You measure it to manage it. And this week I was reading a book about the success formula. And it was interesting that the first quote I came across was one that said, you can measure lots of things, but some of it doesn't really matter. And I really believe that measuring certain things, for example, counting calories, doesn't really matter. So I did all of this without counting calories. So if we look at health, there are 3 parts to health. There's your lifestyle, your diet and exercise. I'm sure most of you thought I was just going to say diet and exercise. But I think lifestyle is key. And I like to consider that my lifestyle, my diet and my exercise are basically a work in progress. I'm constantly looking at them and constantly changing. So let's talk about lifestyle. What do you think the element, does anybody want to volunteer? What are the elements of your lifestyle?
Sleep.
What?
When you sleep, when you get up.
Right?
Let's see. Whether you eat regularly.
Right?
Friendships.
Friendships, yes?
What are your vices?
Vices, yes? Yeah.
Turn off your phone before going to bed.
Sorry?
Turn off your phone before going to bed.
Yes? It's definitely a good... So, there are lots... We do things all day, every day, that affect us, and they affect our health. Right? And they are our lifestyle. And in the Western society, we have generated a lifestyle that is incredibly stressful. Yes, it's unbelievably stressful, and it also relates around the clock. Now, I get 45 minutes to an hour here, which is a notional amount of time, right? But the most important thing to think about is what really controls us is the sun. Our life is controlled by the sun, and we need to make sure that we live it. Anybody here have a nighttime job? Sometimes. Nighttime jobs are the most stressful. They also impact your health the most. One of the things that I find interesting is that when they change the clocks, and particularly I knew this when I lived in England, when they put the clocks forward an hour, the number of accidents goes up that next day dramatically because we're no longer working according to our natural rhythm. So I made up a list of things of what our lifestyle is. What do you do from when you get up in the morning to when you go to bed at night? But also, how long do you sleep? Do you sleep with your phone on? I mean, there are all sorts of things you can think about. Then, many of us don't actually have control over our lifestyle because if we've got kids, our life is really totally driven by getting the kids up, getting them to school, picking them up, taking them to after. That changes our life. And as we go through our life, it's another stress. And I'm sure the next one most of you are thinking about, you're probably stressed out because how are you going to afford to do anything different or change anything? And I can keep going on. We could go on for hours about all the things that impact our lifestyle. So diet. I love diet. And I don't personally try to follow any diet. When I came here last year, I talked about the fact that I'd learned about intermittent fasting. And I really believe it works because it helps match with what you're doing in terms of the way we should react to the sun. There are so many studies out there about all the different diets. And most of them, if you actually, I have a degree in mathematics, and once you actually go and you look, you see this headline, you do this, you're going to do a lot better. You do that, you're going to die 10 years earlier. Most of them, when you actually go and look at the statistics and the way they collected the information, it's just somebody with some marketing idea has tried to persuade you that what they're selling is good. So part of what I like to think about is you need to think about how you do it, and how you choose what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat. Of course, the most famous diet that everybody should be following is the Mediterranean diet. How many people here have been to the Mediterranean? Did you go to Greece? Did you go to Italy? Did you go to Spain? Did you go to Israel? I mean, all of those places have actually different diets. There is no real thing called the Mediterranean diet. It comes from a study done about 70 years ago, a guy who went and he lived, I think, in Italy for 4 months, and he discovered that people were healthier there. But they were healthier because their lifestyle was different, not necessarily because their food was different. And I think, I love this one. I really love this one because whoever's going down to McDonald's, that's what you're going to do. You are participating in the standard American diet, which has the abbreviation of SAD. And basically, it's processed food. And processed food to me is the one thing that I really try and avoid. Because basically, in processing food and getting it from the farm to your table, what they do is they take out all the good stuff and they put in a bunch of chemicals to keep it alive so it's still edible when you get it. But it's not really food when you get it. Does anybody remember where this comes from? What? I know Miss Clara. And what year was it? Anybody remember? It was 84. But to me this signifies, and it signifies a problem that we have right now, is that we have got used to the concept that our food comes in little round pâtés. That's the way we eat food. Food doesn't come in little round pâtés, and it doesn't come looking perfect. Right? And right now, there is an obsession with all these veggie burgers. And what did they do with them? They took the veggies, they took the good stuff out, they put some chemicals in, now they're marketing it as vegetarian food. But it's still a round packet. What? It tastes like beef because but it's full of chemicals. So does anybody remember this?
Yes.
Does anyone remember? Yes, that's right. But does anybody remember when this was? It was 1971. And actually this commercial was as popular in the UK as it was here. And that's my second biggest gripe. If I could do it, I would ban soda. Soda is positively the worst thing for you. And cheers. I know. And it's, I personally try not to drink it. And in fact, I probably in the last 30 years have had maybe half a dozen cups of soda at one point or another in time. Because basically all it is water with chemicals in it, which makes it sweet and nice. And even the stuff that's, they're now even saying the diet stuff is bad for you. Then there's our schedule as to what we eat, right? And when we eat. This actually forces us to eat about 14 to 16 hours a day. Who had breakfast before they left home this morning? Who's going to eat at 8 o'clock tonight? So we force ourselves to eat a very long time because a nice guy called Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and meant we could use the evening. I managed 2 years ago to lose 25 pounds in 6 months by not eating after 7 p.m. in the evening for 6 months. That's all I did. At that point, I hadn't changed any of the rest of my diet. Although I think I probably had given up eating red meat, which I did about 5 years ago. But just think about it. If you eat the normal times, which is associated with when our social schedules are, you will eat for a lot longer than your body can actually cope with. And when you're young, you get away with it. The problem is as you get older, your body changes. And the human body actually, in my experience, has an amazing ability to repair itself if you give it time. And that's where I got into intermittent fasting. I learned to give my body time to recover overnight. When you say, I'm not going to eat for 12 hours, you go, oh, that's terrible. That's really, really terrible. But you're going to be asleep for 8 of them. So why not just not eat for 3 hours before you go to bed? And then instead of getting up in the morning, you don't grab breakfast as you run out the door to go to work. And ironically, when I went to work at the IRS, I went to work at 6 a.m. And I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to manage to eat healthily? Now, I'm sure the lady there can tell you how wonderful the cafe is at the IRS. As you walk down the hallway, you sort of, I'm reminded of a 1960s diner with the smell oozing out of it. It's quite wonderful. So I took my breakfast to work with me. And then on my first break at 9 o'clock, I would eat it at 9 o'clock. And then I had my lunch, and I went and ate my lunch. And then I went home at 2:30, which was absolutely great because I had a whole another day afterwards to work. But think about, one of the things you think about is when do you eat, the time you eat, and giving your body enough time to recover. And as I said, the social conventions we have really reinforce this. Now, I also had a lot of difficulty at the time that I was trying to lose weight. Everybody says you have to diet and exercise. And I discovered actually exercise makes very little difference to whether or not you will lose weight. Exercise will keep you healthy, will keep your bones moving, will keep your muscles limber. It will not make you lose weight. So if you want to just lose weight, all you have to do is concentrate on your diet. And I can prove that because I went, a few years ago when I was living up in Connecticut, I went to a cupcake shop called Crumbs. And I went in and I asked, what's the cupcake with the most calories? And they pulled out this cupcake and it had 1,080 calories in it. Yeah? I tried to eat it. Actually, the cupcake won. I couldn't finish it. But I can tell you, I can exercise on an elliptical machine for an hour, and if I use 800 or 900 calories, which is only about 600 calories than I use just sitting here. All of you are using at least 200 calories just sitting here. Yeah? So in 5 minutes, I can eat as many calories as I can use get rid of in an hour. So don't count calories is the first thing to do. The other thing is don't believe that exercise is going to make you lose weight. Now, what I wanted to do now is talk to you about what exercise is. And people often think exercise is going to the gym. It isn't going to the gym. It's getting up and moving. If you actually move a lot, and move more than you probably do, you will actually make yourself healthier. Now, courtesy of the IRS, I was able to take out their health insurance. And when I went to have my annual physical, Blue Cross Blue Shield sent me this, which is a Fitbit. Now, I've always avoided getting one of these, but this Fitbit, I can make it so that every hour it tells me to walk 250 steps. And 250 steps actually isn't very much, but what I've actually found in just wearing it and getting up and doing those 250 steps actually makes it easier for me. So just getting up and walking is key. Last year when I did the presentation, I talked about avoid the drive-through. That's another part of lifestyle. If you're so late that you have to go to Starbucks and go through the drive-through, you're not helping yourself. You're helping Starbucks. But even just parking your car and getting out and walking into Starbucks is better than going through the drive-through. And you know, it's one thing that exists in this country that I've never seen anywhere else in the world is drive-throughs. Americans live in their cars. And I always remember years ago, somebody told a joke which was along the lines of, you know, in California, people drive to their car. The other joke is when they turned America on its side, all the nuts fell in California. But I believe they're here in Austin now, most of them. So just walk. Just park your car at the end of the parking lot and walk into the store. You'll do your 250 steps just walking in and out of the supermarket. It's really, really simple. So we've gone through lifestyle. It's 3 elements: health, lifestyle, eating, and diet. But how do you make changes? There are 2 things we do. One is our habits and one is our routines. And the way to make a distinction between habits and routines is what you've got you here this morning. You got up, you got dressed, you got in your car, and you did it. Because you didn't have to think about it. You have a routine for doing that. Our habits are the things that we need to change. Our habits are the things that we do. So a sequence of a habit is very simple. There is a trigger. The trigger is something that sends us to the refrigerator to pull out the ice cream. Or we get stressed and we go and grab a cookie out of the cookie jar. We all have triggers. So what you want to do is think about your triggers and think about the things that you do that make you do the responses that you don't want to do. Right? And it's been shown that the only way to alter the response, because you love the response, you get a reward, you feel better, you get some sugar, you scream at someone, you do something that responds to your trigger, is to basically find a new response for your triggers. So identify your triggers and then find a new response. And these are little simple things you can think about as you do this. So I didn't really get how I became a Scrum Scrum Master. So a few weeks ago, after I left the IRS, I came here and I heard a gentleman called Scott Killen talk, and he's a project manager. So most of my life I've been a project manager. And he said, oh, one of the things you want to do is get your Scrum certification. So I went to the Scrum certification course 3 weeks ago now, and I got my Scrum certification. And what I found is that Agile project management is actually very similar to the way I always did project management. It's also very similar to the way I always looked at problems. But can you actually use the concepts of Agile project management to improve your health? And the answer to that is yes. Because basically, Agile project management is about making lists of things to do, picking those lists, making sure that for a 2-week period, a 1 to 4 week period, that you actually concentrate on those and you do them. So, Agile project management is all about putting some terms around project management. And let's look at these. It defines a process. It defines the fact that when you go through the process, you do things in bite-sized chunks. You also do things and you show people what you've done. And you principally have a group of people who the development team is allowed to make a choice about what they do. And what's fundamentally different about being a project manager and an Agile Scrum Master is the Scrum Master is a coach. They are not the person who's telling people what to do. So what I want you to think about is you can either be your own coach for your health, or maybe you need to find a health coach, or you need to find someone. I don't know how many of you have used a resume coach. How many of you are using somebody to help you in your job search? But a lot of what you do, both in the job search and staying healthy, is very similar. So the process in Agile is plan, do, check, act. And after you've acted and you've reviewed it, you go back and you revise it again. And essentially, that's what I actually did during that period of time when I tried, first of all, I tried about 4 different ways to do fasting before I came across just not eating after 7 p.m. None of them worked for me. In England, there's a very famous one called the 5-2 diet, which says you eat 500 calories 2 days a week. Well, I have a great deal of difficulty figuring out what 500 calories is. And I'm not quite sure whether anybody really understands that calories were generated about 100 years ago by a Dr. Atwater, and they are an estimate. They are a mere estimate, and they can be plus or minus 20 to 30%. And if you look up a banana, it says it's 90 calories. But is this a little banana or a big banana? You know, it's like there's many different things. Plus, I believe really that every single one of us, our bodies react differently to food. And they react differently to food during our life. When we're young, our bodies are great at getting rid of stuff. And as we get older, they're not so great. And now people are concentrating on why do people get heavier as they get older? And I think that what we need to do is stop thinking that I can eat like I did in my 20s when I'm in my 50s and accept the same result. So Agile is about running companies and projects with very small incremental changes. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, is to think about making small incremental changes to your lifestyle, to your diet, to your exercise. Most diets fail. And why? Because the day you start it, you're going to eat nothing that you remember from yesterday. You've got to change everything. So if you just look at one thing, make a choice and choose that. Do it for 2 weeks. Make it a habit. Make sure that you'll no longer have that trigger that's making you do the thing that makes you eat that particular thing. Or in Shan's case, her love of soda. So making changes. The concept in Agile is that you have a product owner. The product owner generates user stories. So in this case, you're going to be everything. You're going to be the product owner, you're going to be the development team, and you're going to be the Scrum Master. So you're going to do everything. But the way you determine what you're going to do is through what are called user stories. And a user story is really, really simple. A user story is something that says, for this person, I want to do this and get this result. So for you, I'm going to make this change, and then I'm going to see in 2 weeks whether that change made the result that I expected it to make. So you can use exactly the same formula, as it were, that Agile uses to develop a program for yourself to stay healthy. The Scrum Master, as I said, is the coach. But maybe you can't be your own coach. Maybe you need a coach to help you with this. Maybe you need a resume coach. Maybe you need a health coach. Maybe you need a personal trainer. I tried personal trainers once, but they don't work for me because they want me to do all sorts of things that don't seem to work for me. I once tried to do CrossFit, and everyone said, oh, anybody can do CrossFit. You can be 17 or you can be 85, and you can do CrossFit. Well, in CrossFit, there is an exercise called a burpee. I get dizzy doing burpees. And that's me, yes? And, you know, I can do about 3 before I'm likely to fall on the floor, and that probably has something to do with my blood pressure going down through the floor when I do that particular kind of exercise. So each time you come up with an idea, you want to look at your sprint. The sprint is the 1 to 4 week period when the development team chooses things from the list of things to do. So you have a product backlog, which is a list of all the stuff, and then you make a change, you implement it, you figure it out, and you stick with that. You don't try and do everything all at once. And the team is allowed to choose which things it does. The team is allowed to choose how long it's going to take them to do stuff. Because Agile is all about getting commitment and motivation from a development team. And the person that needs the commitment and motivation is you. And this is a great way to make sure that you can get your own motivation. No one's going to tell you what to do, right? You have to figure it out. Now they have this wonderful concept of a daily scrum. Every time I hear this term, my mind goes back 50-something years to those days when I was the little guy, stuck in the middle, being squashed by all these big guys. But a daily scrum is about people, the development team. It's the development team's meeting. The scrum master is there to help coach them in making sure they do the process correctly. And basically, it is not a meeting where they report to the scrum master what they have done, which is the traditional way projects are run with a project manager. What they do is say, they can say what they did yesterday, but their principle is to say what they're going to commit to do today. So find a way to tell yourself each day, what am I going to commit to today? And make sure it's on your list. Now, if something fails, write down why it fails and think about why it fails. Writing things down is a great way to get focused. And then when you get to the end of a sprint in Agile, you do a review. And it's kind of interesting because Agile has this concept of a burn-down report. And a burn-down report is exactly the opposite of a project plan report. A project plan tells you how much progress, how much further you've got to go, right? What a burn-down report says is how much you've succeeded. Now, if you decide that you want to lose 10 pounds this week, I'd say good luck to you, because during the period that I lost 25 pounds, I really did only lose it 1 or 2 pounds a week. And I've been able to keep it off for over 2 years now. So there must be some truth in the fact that if you lose weight slowly, you can actually maintain it. But the burn down report looks exactly like my chart of me mapping my weight, because it just goes down slowly. But the point is that not to get distracted by the fact that you're above or below your projected line. It's just to make sure that during the process, you're staying on track. And that's what Agile is all about. So many it came from the computer industry, and so many computer projects fail because they followed a particular type of development schedule, which meant that until you actually delivered the thing to the client 6 months after you said you were going to, you don't find out that everything's wrong. And Agile came out of this iterative process. So apply that iterative process to how you look after your weight. So as I said, the sprints last 1 to 4 weeks. So maybe you decide you want to give up soda. Keep picking on Shannon. Could you do it? Could you do it for 1 day? Could you do it for 2 days? And then after you've done it for a week, how are you going to feel? Right? Are you going to be able to feel that the triggers that send you to soda have gone far enough that you can live your life without it? So, Agile project management is about making small changes. It's about looking at each sprint and making adjustments to the product backlog as you go. It's a process of iteration, and iteration is a great way to keep things going. And they have a couple of things in it which I think you can adapt. And in a way, I kind of adapt it for myself, which is the product list, the product backlog and the sprint backlog. So the product backlog is all the things you want to do. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to exercise more. Maybe you want to spend more time with your friends. Whatever you want to do, or you want to go to a networking meeting, or you want to, my favorite one is join a Toastmasters group. Now there's a Toastmasters group associated with Launchpad. And if you want to, there are over 100 Toastmaster clubs in Austin. I'm only a member of 3, so I'm a little bit of a Toastmaster junkie, but it's a great way to learn how to feel better and more comfortable around people. And it's a great way to network. So, say you wanted to join Toastmasters, your first thing is investigate clubs near me. So, let's think about it. You want to visit 4 clubs. So you find the schedules of them, and in a 2-week period, you visit them. And you can decide you like this one or you like that one. And eventually, after that, you've done an analysis of which club you would like to join. But if you say, I'm going to go and join Toastmasters, and you go one club and you don't like it, you're never going to go back to another one. So by breaking it down and making it simple choices, you give yourself the time to focus on what's important. So as I was thinking about this presentation, I wanted to ask people, what are the things you would like to do to improve your health? So does anybody want to volunteer? Because, any suggestions?
Give up sugar.
So how would you go about doing that?
Stop eating.
But it's in everything.
Well, I went on IP a year ago and I lost like 70 pounds, but I've gone back to the one thing that's killing me is the sugar. So just try every day to say no, 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 and if I have to have it, just have a small piece of it for today, and then tomorrow try again to say no to all of it. I don't drink soda, so that's not a, it's the cookies and the sweet treats that get me, so.
But I'd admit, I still eat cookies, and one of the ideas I had was to bring a cookie jar with me here, but I couldn't find one. And I was going to give everybody a cookie from the cookie jar who asked a question. But
Well, another idea too is to replace the sugar with another sweetener. Like, not the nasty ones, but stevia is good and Truvia is good. So if I'm going to make something, make it with that instead of sugar.
so, are you one of the people who likes to believe that you can't eat fruit because it's full of sugar?
When you're trying to lose weight, yeah, I think so. But as a totality, after you lose the weight, having some fruit is good. It's good for you.
I never gave up fruit. In fact, I eat a lot of fruit, and I don't buy this just because fruit has got sugar in it. You shouldn't eat it because it's got a lot of other stuff in it that is good for you. So I wouldn't give up fruit. Anybody else got any suggestions for what they'd like to do?
I mean, I think the idea of putting a barometer, like how does this make me feel? And I think taking just the time, like you look at food, or you think about what you're going to do in the next, what you're about to embark on, whether it's sitting down at the computer, doing vegetables, or whatever. Same thing, well, how's this going to make me feel? How can I do this different? I think it's going to make me feel better. Make me feel more inspired, make me feel more happy. I think, taking like this little tiny habit, taking a few seconds to go, how's this going to make me feel? How's that going to make me feel? How's this going to make me feel? Starts building, that self-awareness of body that I think, is very crucial.
One of the projects in Toastmasters is actually to spend 2 weeks making a diary of how you feel. And after the 2 weeks is to do a presentation to your Toastmasters group on what you wrote down. And I think that a lot of us don't necessarily do those kind of things. We don't reflect on what we do, and it's really good.
I think my personal experience, I've been out of job for 6 months, so the changes, I have not changed any diet except that when I was working, I used to go clean lunches and all those things, eat at cafeteria, things like that. Now I, eat at home, home food. So other than that, I have not changed anything. I lost 10 pounds in the last 6 months, just staying home. Eating healthy, that's all.
Yeah.
That is everything.
Do I need to wrap up, Catherine?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
Did
so-
everybody hear what this gentleman
He said-
said? Could you summarize it for the group in the microphone so we can...
So basically you said you haven't made...
Oh, so what I was saying, being out of job for 6 months, I stayed home for 6 months now. And the changes that I had was, when I was working, I used to go out for lunch with teams, go out and eat food, processed food. But now I eat at home, all my lunches and breakfast at home. So other than that, I have not changed anything, no exercise, nothing, but I lost 10 pounds in the last 6 months.
Excellent.
Yes.
I read somewhere that the worst enemy to a good diet is the workplace.
Yeah.
Because there's so much free junk food.
So, when I worked at the IRS for 4 months, I actually managed to, because I took all the food that I ate there with me, and I kept it along the diet that I was doing. I managed, even though I had to sit still for so long every day, I actually didn't gain any weight. So, as Kathy would like me to wrap up, I'd like you to think about these things. What can you change about your lifestyle? What can you change about your diet? I'm not going to persuade you all to be vegans, even though I'm principally a vegan. And I want you to think about exercise. And if you're not doing it, just park the car at the opposite end of the parking lot and walk into the store as far as you can. Just start with that, and you'll be amazed at the amount of progress you make. So make one small change and make it stick. And as you do that, you'll just feel better. So, where I'd like to end is, being a project manager, you hear lots and lots of cute little phrases that people do. And every once in a while I think, where did that come from? Who actually said that? So I Googled, nobody plans to fail, they merely fail to plan. And it's attributed to about 50 different people. Nobody really knows where it comes from. But part of what I'd like to do is make sure, just make small changes, make a list of the things, choose one thing, do that. And understand that you can actually improve your health remarkably rapidly by doing that. So, does anybody have any other questions so I can let...
What about the opposite effect, where you get anxious and you kind of go off your feet, like a dog who won't eat his food, where you're losing weight too fast? Losing weight.
I'll probably make an inappropriate suggestion here, but I would suggest you think about finding a therapist to talk to, because I think therapy is one of the most misunderstood things that we do. People have a lot of negative feelings about mental health, and when you start not wanting to eat and not wanting and losing weight too fast, there is probably something else, and a therapist can often help bring that out.